presentations, this might be the best presentation you've ever been to in your life. There's one graphic in the whole thing, and so it might be better if I just sit down and we all read it together, line by line, put a little bouncy ball on all the words. Okay, so I'm here to talk about the NEPA process, or excuse me, the NEPA assignment process that we're undertaking. We're just getting going, so a little background on it. In Safety Lou in 2005, FHWA started a pilot program that would allow a certain number of states, 5 in that bill, to pursue NEPA delegation. And what that means, wow, now that's definitely loud. What that means is it allows a state to take over FHWA's federal responsibility to conduct NEPA evaluations and Section 7 consultation with the Forest Service. Pretty much everything except tribal-to-tribal consultation is assignable. And so in 2008, UDOT went after the NEPA assignment just for categorical exclusions. So those are projects that fall on what everybody knows as the C&D list, hopefully. So those are your road mill and overlay type projects, preservation type projects. And that's been going pretty well. We've had a couple audits. We've seen some benefit to it. And we want to expand that to take over the rest of the NEPA program from our federal partners. And that's what this session's here to talk about. So like I said, it's taken over the formal assignment of FHWA's legal responsibilities. And so the state would take over all environmental assessments, all environmental impact statements, all the laws that coincide with those, and consultation with the agencies that we can, so minus the tribal consultation. So we will be reviewing and approving those documents. We will be signing the EAs, well, we'll be releasing the EAs, we'll be signing the EISs, and we'll also be we'll be creating and approving the decision documents, and I'll get a little bit more into exactly what that means later. We also would have to defend ourselves in federal court should somebody challenge one of our projects. And what that meant is the 11th Amendment prevents any private citizen from suing a state in a federal court. But we went through this last legislative session and ran a bill, and we waived that authority. We waived that immunity. So now people have the luxury of suing us in the federal court without FHWA at our side, or at some level. There's kind of a graduation, and all of these things are in flux. This is a negotiation process, and it's a new process between FHWA and the states. So we've got a lot to figure out. We probably have more questions than answers right now, but we're pretty excited about it. So it'll be a 5-year initial term once we get complete with the negotiations. All the federal laws apply. No environmental protection changes whatsoever. We think there's a lot of streamlining opportunities within the document creation to reduce some of the review processes that are necessary, because right now FHWA is the legal responsibility of these documents. So they have to make sure it goes through their legal department and they're comfortable with the risks that were taken and they're comfortable with the approach that was taken. And so we'll have the ability to maybe work those concerns into our existing processes and maybe get things going a little quicker that way. And we hope by doing that we're going to save time in project delivery, and maybe we'll save a little bit of money in the environmental side, but I kind of think it might be the opposite. I kind of think we might be spending a little bit more money on our environmental documents, getting the technical resources that we need. But my hope is if we could get 6 months, 1 year shaved off one of these large environmental documents, like the West Deos Corridor, none of that delay could be attributed to FHWA. But if we could get it out 1 year earlier, that small increase in inflation over a year on a $600 million project is huge. So I think that's really where the savings is going to be, and then we'll be able to get those monies back into future projects. So we touched on this. We'll be removing one layer of government review, and really the main step that is legal sufficiency. So FHWA doesn't have a huge legal staff that's fully staffed in all 50 states, and those attorneys are responsible for multiple documents in multiple states, and so they've got to schedule their workload and they've got to take care of other issues. I think this gives us the opportunity to have an attorney on call, ready to go on our schedule, and be able to more quickly make those turnarounds. It's going to help on the consultation processes, for example, with the Section 106 and Section 7 of the Threatened and Endangered Species Act, and where we can go and negotiate with those other federal agencies, acting like a federal agency ourselves. And this one may seem kind of controversial, but what I'm really trying to say there is there'll be more focus on local decision making, because at the state DOT we work with our state, local, and federal partners all through the planning process, right? We've got the long-range plan, we've been talking to the cities, we've been doing evaluations, we've gathered all this information, and we've made some decisions and put lines on map through the long-range 30-year transportation plan. But then if you're in Washington, D.C., or you're Fish and Wildlife Service and you're removed from the process, when we get into the NEPA process, we've got to kind of bring you along, right? We've got to help you understand why we think this project's a good idea, where it came from, what its intent is, and so I think we could better get that facilitated into our existing program, and hopefully help us a little quicker. So that's what I mean by the better alignment of interests. I don't think there's any conflict necessarily that we're trying to get away from. So we'll take on all legal responsibility for the decisions. We'll be responsible for making sure we obtain legal sufficiency. FHWA will not be allowed to participate in our projects the way it's currently structured in other states. We will have them as a resource for training, but there's no, on a project level, a backstop. There's no blaming our federal partners anymore. We're in total control to make ourselves successful, and that's what we're going to do. So the federal role at FHWA is going to change to a monitoring and oversight role, to where the first 2 years there's going to be an audit every 6 months, and they're going to go through our projects and our programs and find any deficiencies and record those. And those deficiency reports get published to the nation in the Federal Register, and we'll have a chance to come up with a corrective action plan and try to improve. And we've got a lot to figure out still, so I would anticipate there's going to be some hiccups. But we've got a great partnership with FHWA, and I think we'll figure it out. Right now, there's only 3 other states in the nation that have this, if Ohio's complete. I'm 90% on that. Texas and California are the other 2. So the whole program's in its infancy, and I would expect it to continue to change as we learn more, and legislation continues to come out and provide new tweaks and opportunities. So I see this as a moving target as we get going forward. One thing that is part of our negotiations is when does UDOT take over for FHWA on these existing projects? So for example, we've got West Davis out there. We've got 1800 North. Both of those are EISs. They've gone through a formal public process. They've gone through the releasing of a draft EIS. And so it's my position that those make sense to stay with FHWA, to not confuse the public, to not have to take any steps back. So there's not really a good clean break, but it seems like, in my mind, that releasing of a public document seems to be a logical point to make that split. That's going to include reevaluations and supplemental documents in the future. If we have to reevaluate or do a supplemental EIS because of the passage of time or something's changed in the field, that will be done through UDOT. Also, there's this new term in Utah that we've been using more and more called documented CADXs. And really what those mean are projects that are being processed as a CADX that don't necessarily fall on the C&D list. We'll still have that ability to do that with this MOU, but it was certainly a lot more comfortable to allow that risk to occur when it was our federal partners' risk. I see back there, Ivan, I'm waiting for... Anyways, the CE MOU that takes care of the C and D list will stay in place. And there's a couple reasons for that. In my mind, those are two different programs. Our CADXs are set up to support our preservation type projects, and that is about 90% of our work as a department. I mean, 90% of what we do in terms of expenditures and projects are those type of projects. But if you look at the amount of money we spend in environmental getting through the process, we spend a lot more on EAs and EISs. And the issues are different. And so in my mind, it makes sense to have two different MOUs taking care of the two different programs. No, not going to be able to say this enough. And I take this really seriously. UDOT, not FHWA, will be legally responsible for these. And sued in federal court, we won't have the support that we necessarily did in the past. There is some language being tossed around that would allow the Department of Justice and FHWA to get involved at some point where they determine that there's a project of federal interest, and that can make sense. Some of these projects, especially when they go to appeals, can set national precedents that everyone has to live with. But I think we have a shared interest between our two agencies to make sure that those decisions come out as best as they can for all of us. I would consider this, the rest of that, a repeat. So right now, this is kind of how it works if you're not familiar with the way decisions are made within the DOT. FHWA has to approve and be okay with the class of action that's going to be used on a certain project. So we call that a COA. Right now, that's FHWA. It's going to be UDOT in the future. We're preparing this supporting studies and technical developments and hiring the consultants and doing the day-to-day. That's always been done by UDOT with consultation or coordination with FHWA. That coordination will go away, but you'll still have your UDOT project manager. In terms of preparing the document, kind of the same thing. UDOT runs and controls the process in coordination with FHWA, but they are the gatekeepers at those decision points. You can't advertise a DEIS without an okay of FHWA, and saying you can't release an EA for public comment without okay from FHWA. UDOT will be completely responsible for the QC, QA of the process, and documentation is going to become even more improvement. Right now, the responsibility for compliance with the federal agencies, Section 7, Section 106, all of those reside with FHWA. We support them in those efforts, but at the end of the day, it's their responsibility and they're the decision maker. That's going to change under this MOU. And we've talked about the lawsuits a couple times. So really what's going to change for us is we need to make sure we organize ourselves to where FHWA is comfortable with the way that we are going to be able to carry out the assignment. That means capable staffing, processes, and procedures. There's going to be regular QC, QA check-ins with FHWA through those audits to make sure we're adhering to our policies and the law. But UDOT is now responsible to maintain the administrative record for a project. And so one of the things we're working on is a standard file structure that'll exist within project-wise, so we know from one environmental document to the next where we might find those certain elements that would be critical should we ever have a lawsuit. We also have to perform self-assessments every 6 months. These are the decisions we've made in the past 6 months. These are the determinations and the reasons that went into it, and send that over to FHWA. And we also will promise to play nice on the audits. So record keeping and decision making is going to be really important moving forward, because a lot of times on these fast projects, a decision's made, we move forward, we implement the decision, and then going back when somebody asks, well, what exactly did you consider when you decided to take this approach? That needs to be in the project file. So I'm seeing a lot of more methods and assumption documents being created. And as we start to create more and more of those, I see those becoming more consistent. And I think that's really what we need as a department. So we're going to move towards standardization, consistency, and uniformity. And that's something that I think we really need. I've heard from some of our federal partners that sometimes they feel like they're dealing with 4 UDOTs, depending on which region they're working in. And that's a problem. We need to have a unified front when we're dealing with the SHPO office, the Fish and Wildlife Service, just so we can meet their needs better and also help communication. And we're going to continue to develop new guidance. What's coming out in the next few months is we've got some guidance on how to use social media within the NEPA process. What sort of information do you need to put on your web page to let people know how that information that they're commenting on is going to be used? If you're in an official public hearing or an official public comment period, those comments need to be collected and addressed in a much different way than if you just have an open-ended comment field on your website, right? Just tell us what you think, and we need to give them some sort of expectation on how that information is going to be used and what the communication back will or won't be. And so this is the one graphic in the whole thing, right? Isn't that awesome? Jen describes it as a big hug. So right now, or in the past, the way it's worked is we've had various environmental managers in each region, and they had some support of archaeologists and landscape architects, and they reported to the region pre-construction engineer, who, no offense to the region construction engineers that may be in here, I don't see any. They're doing a great job, but they don't know NEPA. They didn't come up through NEPA. They don't know what their people need. They don't know how to make them better successful in the training and opportunities that they could have. And so I think we're going to have all of those regions report centrally, and we're going to be a unified environmental team, and I think we'll be able to support each other better and provide some cross-training opportunities and grow people instead of, sometimes when I was in the region, I felt a little pigeonholed because there wasn't a career path for me. There weren't positions that exist that I could move through. And so we don't have a ton of detail on that. We just had a large meeting yesterday as a group talking about the things that we might want to look about and reprioritize as we move forward as our responsibilities are changing. So we're going to look to implement some more formal training programs, and we're doing this in conjunction with FHWA. They're willing to come out and help us provide some resource-specific training. Cumulative and indirect training is on the list, as well as air quality in the next coming months, 6 months, year, with near future. We won't be doing national policy upgrades or guidance. That's still the role of the federal government. And we've talked about those. So what doesn't come with assignment is FHWA is still responsible for the air quality determinations. They're still responsible for the government-to-government consultation. They'll still have the engineering and oversight decisions on the federal highway system, but no project level assistance. So if we have an issue on a specific project, they are not allowed to give us advice on how to solve that. But if we wanted to take a look at it from a program level so we could maybe avoid that situation in the future, they're happy to come help talk through that with us. They'll still be responsible for the improving of the interstate access modification process, and responsibilities for statewide and metropolitan planning. Their role in the planning process doesn't change. Multimodal projects, unless requested through a separate application, are excluded. So under MAP 21, they did expand some language that if a state DOT did get this NEPA delegation or assignment from FHWA, that state could then pursue other modes. And UDOT doesn't do transit, so I don't see that anytime in the near future, but the flexibility is there. And UDOT cannot be the lead federal agency role for any state that crosses the border. So at first, I got to tell you, I was really nervous about this change. What does it all mean? Is it more work? Is it less work? But I think we've proven that we've got a great, experienced environmental team, and we all know in this room that it's not only due to my staff and their capability, but the great partnerships we have with our consultant community. I think we all work together really well, and I think we've got a good system in place to be reactive to the things we need to be reactive to. And so I'm really not too concerned about that anymore. We've already developed some new training, like I've said. We've updated our manuals to take care of the discrepancies of where FHWA used to be the recipient of a product. So it will now be UDOT, and so we've tried to clean that up. We're going to have a new focus on QC and QA, and the commitment to succeed is there both on FHWA side and UDOT side, so I'm feeling really good about the support we're getting. And we will always look for new and better ways to do things. We'll always actively manage these things, and they'll continue to change. I mean, there's federal legislation that's floating out right now in a draft form that would make small changes to the NEPA assignment program. And so we'll have to understand what those mean as we move forward. So it's a never-ending process. So next steps, we waived our sovereign immunity. We've prepared the application for NEPA assignment. The application had to go out for public comment for 30 days. And that comment period is currently underway. It ends on November 9th of this year. You can access that through our website right here at this link, and you can download the application itself and you can review it, and you can also post a comment through the online web portal, or there's also information if you want to mail or call in or whatever, and a hard copy is available at our office. I encourage you to take a look at it, let us know what you think. Looking for public comment. So once that 30-day period is over, we will address comments, make the changes necessary according to what we learned in the comment period, and then we can submit that official application to FHWA. And then the formal negotiation can start on the Memorandum of Understanding, which will line out the authorities we do or don't have, and which projects are in, which projects are out. And, you know, that's going to be kind of a complicated process, and I'm looking forward to it. Right now, in my head, I think we're shooting for spring. So I would encourage everybody not to make any project-level decisions based on when the likely outcome of this will be. It shouldn't affect your project. You're going to go through the same process anyways. So I just stay the course, and I'll keep you updated as I can. So once the MOU is negotiated, it goes out in the Federal Register for 30 days. And then we can start thinking about circulating it for signature. That was a lot. It was a lot of words. I apologize for the lack of graphics, but what are you going to do? But I'm happy to take any questions if anybody has some. So the question is, as we get the process going and we learn more and find things that might need to be refined, will we have that opportunity? Is that the question? Well, when you say policy, that's different than guidance, right? And that's different than law. Yeah, we will, and we do. We're constantly working with the AASHTO folks and our FHWA partners on feedback on the way these things are being managed and the way that they're working, and enhancements. So when I talked about the draft language that's in this upcoming bill that may or may not get passed, it was based a lot on the feedback that they got from AASHTO in the States on suggested refinements and changes. So they are open to it, but it's such a new program. California's had it for a while, Texas has had it for a few months, and Ohio maybe has had it for a week. So we've got a lot to learn, and they've been open to suggestion, but you know, we don't know what those are yet. Chuck? I think we've gotten one public comment, and it was just more of a general concern of the overall ethic of the state of Utah and its approach to environmental issues. It wasn't specific to the application. I'm always hopeful that things are going to get better with our federal partners. But I think we've created a few new positions with some specialties, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves here in a little bit. But I think we can task one person on our staff to be in charge of facilitating and building a better relationship with the Fish and Wildlife Service, for example. But then, again, I mean, they've got a lot of projects, they've got a lot of responsibilities, and they've got their own priorities. That's always going to be a challenge. But I think with increased communication and understanding, hopefully we'll realize benefit. Yeah, we've had that conversation with them, and I can tell you it's been getting better slowly. They are now putting the right name and address on their responses, so that's first step. But Utah's in better shape than some of the other states because we already have some delegations, so they're starting to understand it. I would hate to have to start from zero on this stuff, but we'll continue to work with them. They don't care about transportation law all that much. You might be surprised to know. Anybody else? Rod? Yeah, right. Yeah. I think we're going to realign our resources so they're better applied for what we need. The good thing we have compared to Texas and California is we are small. I mean, we got like what, 6,000 lane miles, 1,600 employees. Caltrans has got 20,000 employees, and it's just not even comparable in my mind. Texas is in that same boat, just being such a huge geographic state with an enormous program. I would hate to have to do what they're doing. And Ohio's kind of the same thing. And that's what I've been trying to help some of our federal partners understand is we're talking about 3, maybe 4 EISs at one time and maybe 5, 6, 7, 8 EAs throughout the state. And we've got a great consultant community and we've got a great staff. So I think we're going to deal with that issue if it comes up. But right now, I think we're going to realign some of our resources to focus more on those areas where I think the risks are. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah, and you're experiencing those growing pains right now, aren't you? And it's gonna be a process to figure this out and make sure everybody understands what we're doing. Um, Trying to get back to what your question was. No. I think the question was, how are we going to make sure with the staffing that we have that we can keep the projects going and keep on schedule and not take a step back and help the project managers know what to do when so there's more smooth transition? Right, and I think that's a risk-based discussion that we probably should have more often than we do. You're in a unique case. I hope not to have to do that to you again. But I ate some of your schedule trying to figure this out, so I apologize. But the reason for that is trying to make sure we're making the right steps. And I think what we'll be able to do in the future is I'll use West Davis Corridor as an example. Randy's not in here, is he? Okay, so he even admitted it in his presentation this morning. But we started we started the EIS process on West Davis Corridor, and then took a year to figure out what the heck we were doing, right? How big is this thing? What are the problems we're going to try to solve? I think there might be an opportunity to provide that project manager with a resource right out of the gate saying, hey, look, on an EIS, here's some of the things you might want to consider about doing right up front so we can better help you find some logical termini or so we can better make an argument for class of action. We didn't have that stuff in place when we got it. Your project's still going out through the FHWA process, but it's probably one of those that's going to end up under the assignment program. So that's my intent, is to provide that technical resource to the environmental managers, so on day one they know what we need to do in the right order to get there quicker. Any others? Mary? You know what? You want the truth? I'm not certain. I'm not certain. And I think that will be things that'll be lined out in our MOU. I just don't recall what it says in the Texas and California MOU. But where that multimodal thing comes in, I mean, if we can do an FHWA NEPA document. We can't do an FTA one. And so where you're a joint lead, I don't understand that relationship well enough to try to answer that. Anybody else? We're going to get out of here early. It's going to be awesome. Okay, so just to finish up, I wanted to introduce Jennifer and Naomi, who are taking a new role in our unit to try to take care of some of these issues. Jennifer and Naomi are environmental program managers, and they're going to be co-leading the assignment effort. And you may see them more and more on your projects, but I think that they're going to be able to provide a lot of value given their background. And so now I'm just going to shut up and let them introduce themselves. Thank you.